African families endure life in the dark as an electricity crisis remains unresolved despite years of government promises.
As South Africa's energy crisis rages, its effects are huge on households. The nation's unemployment rate has soared to over 34%, and the cost of living continues to rise. The power cuts have brought untold suffering to lower middle-class families as they can barely afford alternative sources of energy. Tuso Kumalo reports from Johannesburg.
Buti Mashiko is one of the people considered to be living a decent life in the densely populated suburb of Soweto in Johannesburg. But the constant power cuts being experienced across the country have extremely frustrated this respected construction entrepreneur and his family. The family has to endure 9 hours without electricity daily.
This is very serious because right now we are sitting in the dark. I can't watch the TV, I can't watch the news. I don't know what's going on in the country now.
The meal times have been the worst affected for this family of 8. Sometimes power goes off in the middle of cooking. Eating cold food has become the new normal for this family. On a daily basis, this family has to throw away refrigerated food that has gone bad. This has increased their financial burden.
If there are any leftovers, we have to eat them cold, early in the morning, since the fridge is also affected. We do that to avoid throwing food away, because food is now very expensive.
Kiabetswe Mashiho is Buti's oldest daughter. She is preparing for her final high school exams due next month, but the power cuts are now a stumbling block.
It does affect my studies because the results of the challenges that I'm facing might lead to me failing.
The youngsters in this home also have to miss out watching their favorite cartoons. The Kengli has become their source of light as they play their evening games just before going to bed. This dark experience across the country has forced some families to turn to solar energy to escape the darkness and cold baths.
Sometimes there will be guys jumping in, trying to enter into your premises, and you can't see them. They're not visible. So we install a few solar lights.
And experts say the future is even darker unless something is done fast.
Failure or refusal by the government and the newly appointed board to remove Andre de Ruyter as the CEO and Caleb Kasim as the CFO will plunge this country into a total blackout, which will be the collapse of the transmission grid within the next 3 months. That is what South Africa is facing.
The country's power utility Eskom spokesperson Sekonati Manchanja, who refused to speak on camera, told VOA that the power cuts have been as a result of South Africa's failure to build new power stations while neglecting the maintenance of existing ones. The government has failed to find solutions. President Cyril Ramaphosa, who was on a trip abroad a few weeks ago, had to urgently return home to deal with the crisis. However, nothing has changed so far. This means South Africa's road to a dark future is still long and winding. Tuso Kumalo for VOA News, Johannesburg.
And we have more on the power outage in South Africa.
It's an issue that is close to our hearts, as business people also, with small businesses trying to make a living. As you know, our economy, I think it's out in the public if you look at the numbers. Our economy is not doing exceptionally well. And also if you look at South Africa, there's a need to bring online more what we call black-owned small businesses, right? So that we can have the right mix in the economy and give people opportunities. And the power situation doesn't help. Someone who owns a bakery, someone who owns a butchery, someone who owns something like a laundry, shop, is really in trouble because that person cannot afford an alternative source, of energy. As you can imagine, the power, the diesel, petrol and diesel costs are quite high. but also someone like that wouldn't be able to just go and buy a generator, right? So it's a bit of a problem because, a lot of people are then going to lose jobs as a result of it. We've had load shedding, but not to the extent that we're having it now. It seems to have escalated. But I mean, if you look at the country, there were interventions done by the previous presidents who ran the country. The current president as well was a deputy president then, was involved in what we call the war rooms to try and address the situation. It's really a maintenance issue. Our infrastructure is aging. It has not been maintained well.
From a user's point of view, like for your case, you run a small business, you have people who run small businesses, you have families that depend on this power. What do you do in this case if the bodies that are supposed to provide that service can't do it? Do you have alternative sources of energy?
I mean, a lot of businesses don't, right? I mean, and that's the clear answer. And that's where the problem starts. I was talking to someone who runs a butcher, and his meat got rotten because his fridges are powered through this electricity. And he's got no alternative means, right? Of course, you do get other businesses that are able to make a plan. I mean, if someone has been in business for a while and they've done well, they may be able to purchase a generator. But what we're seeing as well is that big business. We've seen a few companies mentioned where they're starting to now invest in their own solar power, right, infrastructure. We'll rely on coal for quite a while. We'll rely on nuclear for quite a while. It's not going to disappear in the next few years. So the IPP plan and the renewable energy plan is a long-term plan. So what that basically means is until we resolve the operational challenges that we're talking about, then we have a problem, because bringing in renewable energy without addressing those issues still doesn't output enough, for us, to have, this problem go away.
How does Eskom justify these kinds of crises? Because this is like the third year in a row where you guys have had some serious challenges with power.
I mean, from my perspective, I think it's been excuse after excuse, to be honest. I mean, there's been a mentioning of, political interference. And then there's been talk that some of the skills that have come in are either not competent enough or not committed enough to do the job that they're doing. But also there's been this problem that I'm mentioning, that of poor workmanship. From where we stand as normal citizens, we think that there's also a big problem of competence, either at the board level and executive management level.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Paul.
VOA's Paul Ndiho speaking to Johannesburg-based Xolisa Vuza.